Yo, 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 what is up?
What's up? It's good to see you.
Yeah, likewise. It's good seeing you. So yeah, give us a little bit of the backstory because it's now been what? Has it been 3 years since you
Yeah,
joined the program?
it's been 3 years. It's been really interesting progression from going to starting this while I was still student teaching, waitressing at night, finishing up college, getting ready to move to where I live, and then progressing so far where I was able to quit my job. And, it's, yeah, 3 years that student teaching was the last part of that year, and then 2 years teaching. And here we are now. The last year kind of just been,
Are you? I can't believe I should know this, but are you my age? You're a little younger, right?
I'm a little younger. I actually just turned 27.
Okay, so you're 27. I'm 30. So you got into this when you were 24.
I it was right before I turned 24. So we're really at that like solid 3 year cusp. I turned
So do
24,
you,
I think a month
so let's
after.
call it. So you're 23. So let's kind of start the story at the beginning here. So do you remember how you even found me? Like how did you even find this whole thing?
So I think I'll remember it probably for the rest of my life. It sounds so cheesy, but I was actually with my grandparents. I was at one of their houses in Lake Havasu. I was about to finish up college. I knew what my teacher salary was going to be because it's all public information since they're government employees. I had done all the right things, like that was the last part of a 6 year segment of college. I had saved money waitressing, bartending, like working high paying restaurant jobs. And I was like, shoot, it's just not going to be enough, is it? And by this time, I pretty much knew I was going to take a job on the island because there's a high demand for teachers because it's a rough world out here in the wild, wild west. And I just had this epiphany. I was like, wow, my grandparents got to this place by owning property and owning a business and investing in the stock market the right way when the entry points were low enough and the gains were big enough to actually become impactful. Where nowadays, that's just not the way to make money. So I was like, there are idiots making millions of dollars on their laptops. I got online, I got on Google because everyone uses Google, right? And then found you the same way that the people that are watching this found you more than likely.
So so you find us, and the funny part, what I've always found funny about you, is that even after you had a lot of success with this and quit your teaching job, you're like one of those, like, you kind of suffer a little bit from shiny object syndrome. You're always doing like some weird crypto thought here, a forex trading thing there, a YouTube faceless channel. Like you're always doing
Yeah.
some weird thing. And I remember I'm always like, which I'm not like one of these like you got to pick something, but I just love it when people, like, a lot of times everyone's stories, they've done like 5 business models that didn't work, or they come in this makes them a lot of money. And I see this every time where this is the one that they quit their job on, and then they go spend all their profits from this on 10 other like side hustle sketchy things. And I just find that hilarious. So I know you've always kind of been like an opportunity seeker, so to speak, but like you get into this 3 years ago. I know you were teaching. Was the goal, because I feel like most people, and correct me if wrong, but a lot of my cousins, they're also school teachers. I feel like most people don't become school teachers, for obviously you're not doing it for the money. There's no money.
Funny.
I mean, it's a crap paid job, right? But did you like teaching, or do you feel like, or at least like going into it, where you like you have this fantasy of like liking teaching, and then you like hated it when you actually were one? Was it like your calling kind of thing, or not really?
Yeah. So I do tell people I'm super grateful that I got into this business model when I did at the time in my life because although teaching was something that I wanted to do for 6 years, and really since I was in kindergarten, I wanted to be a teacher. It really does go that far back. And I worked at a preschool and, all the other stuff, but I really liked it. I wanted to be a teacher. I didn't do it for the money. Along the way of maturing as a young adult, I realized how much I like money because it does provide stability. People are like, it doesn't buy happiness. And I'm like, well, it's hard to be unhappy if you have all of the money and time that you need to be around your friends and family whenever you want and do the things that you enjoy. So I wanted to be a teacher because I like being a teacher. But I started this because I realized the money was not going to be enough. And because of that, I did teach for 2 years. Because of my love for teaching, I taught for 2 years. The first year went fantastic. I also coached volleyball too, so it was a really positive thing to be involved in the school here because I'd come to the island my whole life, and here I am living on this island. The extra money was really nice when I first moved here though, because before I took my teaching job, I already landed my first client because I was 4 months in, and that's how it goes. So the extra money was nice all the way through my teaching experience, but I did quit my teaching job after the second year because of one, how much I changed as a person, but really the school here, post pandemic, and then plus the school being on the island, I think just creates an abundance of work that needs to be better maintained to create a more productive learning environment. So I did quit my job. Still love teaching, but you do know I have shiny object syndrome, and I do, that applies to my hobbies as well, not just business. So I'm out, fishing, and I learned how to kite surf this year and all these other things. Love teaching. Won't be doing it again because where I live is rad and my lifestyle is really different. I really mean it when I say I just try to wake up every day super grateful that I got into lead generation. But that's kind of how I did get here through that progression of what happened with the teaching while still being in the business and growing my business. I learned so much that second year of teaching. Besides what I learned about all the different business models that I tried because of my shiny object syndrome, I also really learned the difference between passive income and leveraged income. And my second year of teaching literally killed me. If this business model, this is what I tell people, if this business model was not passive, it would not work for a lot of people because you don't have to I tell people it doesn't regress if you don't put work into it. You only put work into it to grow it.
Reality is obviously any time you're learning a new skill set, a new business, there's work. But I'd say our average student kind of comes into this part time. But I also don't want to set the precedent of like people sometimes feel like, oh, like I need to like come in like 80 hours a week. No, like I would actually argue the best way to come into this business is super part time. Like just kind of listen to the coaching calls, kind of go through the train views slowly, kind of just like wrap your head around the community, listening to some training, the live calls. And it's okay to have kind of like a month or 2 or 3 of just kind of dwelling through the program. And then you kind of get this like structure of a plan, and then you can go execute the plan and be like, okay, now I want to go build, X amount of sites. I always recommend, you always want to get to like 10-ish, 10 or 20 sites. Because anything you build today, you're going to feel 6 months from now as the sites go up the rankings, as leads come in, as you then start landing clients. But for you, were you kind of the person who jumped, like when you joined the program, were you just like right at it, or did you kind of dabble? Like, were you kind of slow to start, or were you like really quick when you came in? Because I see both. I actually see no correlation of how people join to like their success. Because I see students who sometimes come in and they don't even log into the course for like the first month, but then they're still successful a year later. And I see other people like the day they join, they start binge watching everything. And I see, and I've just seen like both of those kind of work well. Do you remember? Were you like right at it, or were you kind of like?
I think I remember pretty well because my schedule was so structured because of how many different things going on I had. I remember listening to the training. I started right away, but I was probably fitting 6 hours of work a week in between serving, college, student teaching.
Right.
So I did. And then I remember not really having my first website published until the end of the first month, but I did still land my first client within 4 months. I actually won't ever forget it, of course. It was all through my phone. It was a dumpster rental site. Really interesting. The guy lives in New York, but the business is in Long Beach.
Nice.
So across the country. And I landed that client on the beach here with hanging out with my girlfriend, Maddie, who now has 2 kids. But I landed that client. First lead came in, and I took it directly to a business owner. And it was my first, I know it doesn't always happen like this. So yes, it doesn't always happen like this, but it was my first phone call. He picked up the phone. We communicated really well, sent the lead over to him. And then that line of communication opened up our business together. It was kind of remarkable. So I didn't go hard to the paint at all, but I do agree with you when you're saying like staying consistent is more so important rather than trying to just run into it full speed. I found sometimes stuff like that's not really sustainable. It's like going to the gym. If you go to the gym 6 days a week, you're probably going to stop the second week. But if you start off going to the gym like once or twice, and then twice a week, and maybe like working in a walk, you're more.
That's actually a great analogy, right? Like if like I find like some students, like it's like some people, right? on day one they have a workout plan, they can just go start benching heavy weight and like
Yeah.
even if they're sore, even if it's exhausting, even if it's overwhelming, that's just how their brain works. And then they could just like from day one just go straight into the heavy weights. And then like another person, like they need to just like go to the gym and just like lightly walk the treadmill and just kind of look around and watch other people watch weights for the first month before and like start on the 5 pound dumbbells and ease in. But I find both those people, just you have to know who you are. Both those people end up a year later with the results. It's just, some people jump in guns a blazing or not. So you got your first client, you said 4 months in?
Within 4 months. Yeah.
Which obviously you were teaching. I know you were doing teaching volleyball on top of the teaching. Plus you had like odd jobs on top of it because teachers obviously notoriously make no money. For you, like, do you remember? So it was a dumpster rental site. What was that feeling like? Because I feel like for every single student, it's if it's whether it's their first month if they get their first client or 4 months or 6 months, I always find the first client kind of changes everything because then you go, oh my god, wait, this is reoccurring money. Like every month, I just get this money, and it's very exciting.
Yeah, it was a $500 client. He pays $750 now because inflation.
Yeah.
But I remember at the time thinking, wow, this is $500 of free money each month. And I mean, it motivated me for sure. I think that everyone's first client sets a spark off in them. Um, and so that's where I think my journey differs a little bit, just because I stepped into a classroom like 2 months later. I was still working as hard as I was when I was like working multiple jobs and all that stuff when I was building my business while teaching. So because I was already in the habit of learning and working hard. Now, as you know, with my shiny object syndrome and all these hobbies, I'm a little lazy. But at that time, after my first client, I did maintain a really good work schedule of consistency. But mentally, I was super excited about it. I did have so many things going on that I don't think it set in as hard as it should have, actually, about the possibilities that this was opening up for me.
So, as a side note, so how much at this time were you making? Not in this business. I'm talking like in your teaching plus like what was the breakdown on your teaching plus like bartending or waitressing? Like how much?
Yeah. Well, coaching, it was a couple thousand over the course of 4 months. So, I mean, that was very minimal. And then my teacher's salary a month after taxes was about 5,300. Sometimes there were stipends here and there for different events or trainings and
So
whatnot.
let's
But
call it like you're making like 63K.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So the reason why I want to make a point to everyone, the point I'm trying to make is that one client, your first client, increased your income by 10%. Right. So like what and more, but 10%, but you're not trading your time for dollars. So in my opinion, it's more than 10% because you got to factor in the fact you're getting your time freedom back. You're not having to slave away every month for that $500 a month. But that's what people don't realize is like sometimes people will go, oh, 500 a month, that's not a lot. But it's like, no, that's 10% of like the average American's income. Like it's a lot. Like, for something to be reoccurring. And people will go buy real estate to cash flow $500 a month, and they go, "Oh, like I can go buy a rental property and cash flow 500 a month." Yeah, you're forgetting the part where you owe the bank $300,000 or 400 grand in a mortgage. That if a 2008 type situation happens and the recession hits, you're on the hook for. Where you have no debt on your websites, right? Your web hosting, a tracking phone number. These are like $30 a month, and that's even excessive. Like it's the expenses are so little and so people shouldn't look at it the same way as like some of these business models, you have to put so much debt on your personal name to cash flow. And I'm a fan of real estate, by the way, but I'm not a fan of like, you can't look at all passive income the same because if one is you're on the hook for hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt and this model you're not, that's a huge advantage. So you got $500 a month. I guess we'll kind of jump to today. 3 years later, you're at over $12,000, $13,000 a month. What's really exciting, which is more than your teaching job, obviously, but the funniest part about Alexandria. So just so everyone's aware, because if you end up scheduling a call with us and talking to our team, Alexandria, Kyle, and myself, you're going to talk to just one of us, right? And so Alexandria has now helped us talk to new students because she's been in this program for a long time. This is recent. She's only joined kind of helping me on the coaching side recently. But I think the funniest part about it all is like we always in our like little chat, she's always like playing pickleball or scuba diving. Is your boyfriend the one who's like a scuba diving instructor?
He's
Or,
an instructor.
right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
she's always like scuba diving or doing some like parasailing or like kite surfing or like some extreme sport, eating oysters somewhere. So we're always joking. I definitely think I will admit, even though obviously like Kyle and I make dramatically more income than you, um, I think you win on the lifestyle. I hate to admit it. And, like I've flown first class and been to cool countries and stuff, but like I've never seen the frequency of travel like you. You're like every other day you're doing some crazy extreme sport or you're in water and like you're always packed out with like a real travel vacation schedule. I mean, in my opinion, you're always on vacation. So I think that's like very, very cool. So I think that's a big one because I know the benefit of this business is you can travel and kind of be anywhere. But I don't know. I feel like Kyle and I, our personalities are very like homebody types.
Yeah.
Where
Well,
you're
Kyle was big.
always somewhere. You're like actually living out of a suitcase all the time. So for you, would you say like that was like a big like lifestyle improvement? Just the fact that like, on a Tuesday at like 1 p.m. you can go surf for 2 hours and come back.
Yeah, I definitely say it would. When I stopped, it was a big shift. When I stopped teaching a year ago, all of a sudden I was spending about a week out of the month wherever I wanted. I mean, I spent half the summer up at Lake Arrowhead with my best friend and her baby, and as soon as winter came, I was snowboarding. So the life, yeah, I think I'm a pretty prime example of the whole digital nomad lifestyle. You and Kyle live really good lives too, though. I think we all are,
Oh no,
up.
no, no, for sure. But I just think it's. I want people, and I mean this in a good way. I like the fact that for you, you're not just purely optimizing for income, right? I'd say Kyle and I were more like how Kyle and I are like how do we build this business to 5 million a year, 10 million a year, and yeah, do Kyle and I take like do we take vacations? Do we have a lot of time freedom? Yes. But we're more of that mentality of like how do we keep growing and building and expanding. And what I like about you're like more of a happiness lifestyle optimization. It doesn't mean you don't want, I know you're still building new sites and you're going to eventually get to 20, 30, 40 grand a month. But I want people to understand, like, I hate when these internet gurus are all about like just increasing your income because it's also about your lifestyle and quality of life and health. And I know you're really big into health. We always also joke in our little group chat. You'll be like, oh, that has seed oils in it. Or like, like I know you're like very big in health and nutrition. So I think that's cool to see like another way of approaching this business. It's like Kim Kupka is another example where she like lived in an RV and was doing this business on the road and she was traveling every day and like enjoying her life. And I like seeing that side of people building the business where they're optimizing for travel and lifestyle, not just the pure dollars and cents in the business.
I think that's really important. And I will say my overall quality of life, yes, has changed drastically in the past year and a month since I stepped out of the classroom. And my health has also changed. I have the freedom to explore all of those things about my health and really take care of myself. It sounds a little silly and lazy, but I do I take extremely good care of myself, and I wouldn't have been able to do that without having time freedom because people work these jobs, all of a sudden they're stressed, they're drinking 3 cups of coffee a day. I'm in our group chat we've talked about the caffeine thing. The caffeine thing's out of control. It's all out of control. But you're absolutely right. I think that's really important to highlight, not just financial freedom. I mean, I'm making the most money I've ever made. I'm doing whatever I want all the time.
Yeah.
It's a huge privilege that I try to be grateful for because once something becomes normalized in your life, oftentimes you forget about the life that you used to live. But
Yep.
having the time freedom to really explore your health is something that I think is really important. If people are looking to find financial freedom, that's fantastic. But time freedom brings so much value too. And then that's where I realized about this business model how passive it was because I was trying all these other business models. And even though I would do some to the point where they were making some money, they weren't truly passive. And because they weren't truly passive, that means they weren't truly scalable as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and plus going back to the lifestyle, if you're trying to, if you want to, go surf at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, you need a business that kind of allows you to do that, right? Not
Yeah.
all business models are created equal. There's plenty of ways, there's plenty of things that make money. But the question is like, is there ever a payoff where you don't have to work and you can still receive the money? And that's my thing. Even passive income, maybe we call it leverage income, whatever you want to call it. I know some people call it residual income, but yeah, to me that was the same thing with me. Is that I saw my parents my parents did everything right growing up, and my mom has more degrees than God, right? I mean, she has like PhD from Caltech, the best school ever, and that still didn't buy her financial freedom. That still was her working 40 years. And yeah, did she make $150,000 a year with bonus on good years? Sure, but that like she would get laid off all the time if a company had a problem, recession, what have you. There was no payoff for that money. So to me, that was kind of my obsession with time freedom and passive income and wanting to travel and this idea of like working a job where they only give you 2 weeks off, or even the generous companies like Google or Apple will give you like 4 weeks off in a year. That just
Yeah.
wasn't, to me, I just felt like that's not a lot of time, to do what you want, or at least what I wanted to do out of life. So it's awesome. So I guess now obviously you help me on the side. You still have your websites. Is there a way you can pull up one of them? Maybe just like your website, the call to
Yeah.
staff, and yeah,
Yeah, I will. And going back to that, people you're describing the workflow that your mom went through to get to where she's at. Unfortunately, and I know she's very successful, people think that's the only way to live your life. People think that's the only option out there. And it's just crazy to me that it's more normal for people to accept that they just have to go somewhere for a certain period of their life to be financially independent. It's so bizarre. But let me see. I'll pull up this site. I do outsource any sites that I publish now, but I will show you one that I made myself. Um, when I first started, I didn't understand what a website domain was, so there was such a huge learning curve that I had to go through. I see people come in with less experience and more experience than me, but it's really interesting to think about the fact that I didn't even understand what a website domain was. So for
right.
me to be considered an SEO and lead generation expert by our peers, and then especially people on this island, they think I just speak a different language. It's been a really interesting journey to watch. So I have this website, and I'm going to screen share here. This one is actually in my hometown. Let me see, second desktop. All right. For Long Beach installation. And the website makes $1,000 a month. And I wanted to point this one out because I haven't talked to this business owner in almost 2 years. I really like this website.
And
I
just know it's all drag and drop. I mean, clearly, people are like, "Oh, the websites are ugly." No, that's the point. The point is
Yeah,
that they generate customers for the business owner. That's all that matters. No one cares how pretty or not pretty a website is. Does it get the business owner results? And so in this case, if you show how many calls it's generating, yeah, this year it's generated 312 calls. That ugly little website that you drag and dropped, probably with a glass of wine in your hand, right? So
I
it's
definitely did.
um, no, that's amazing. So super cool, Long Beach, California installation. Fun fact: I bought my car from Long Beach.
What did you?
Yep. I
Your
bought my Porsche 911. But that's cool. And then obviously, I know you've built a lot more. So I guess what's your advice for, let's say, someone? So the biggest one I know is people are like, "Oh, I'm not if they're not a computer person," like which you weren't either.
Correct. Yeah, I think a lot of people do say that, and they should know that it's just like learning anything. Of course, it's going to be a little uncomfortable at first, but you just need to do it. That consistency key that we were talking about earlier is really important. You just stick with it, and it'll get comfortable. It's like anything. I've learned so many new things in the last year for hobbies and business as well, but I now know that I can go into things that are uncomfortable and they will be comfortable eventually. So that's what I always try to tell myself. If you don't have experience in tech or building websites or anything in the online space, it's a great entry point. He honestly is so great with dealing with people with no experience, like myself. I remember my silly questions from years and years ago. And really, what I needed as a human was just reassurance. So I think it's important if someone wants to do this that they know that they will have that reassurance because of how supportive the Facebook group is.
Yeah, well, and I think one thing people don't understand is like not only do I do live coaching calls across the week, we have Brooke, we have another person who's trained up in this who also has another coaching call across the week. So there's live sessions you can hop on. We answer your questions across the week. We have a private Facebook group where you can interact with our over 2,000 members. And then we also have chat support as well. And yes, the chat support are people who've actually done this business model in America, not like some $1 an hour virtual assistant in the Philippines. These are actual people that I pay six figures a year to help in the group. And so on top of all the support, yeah, I'm available. Like, in fact, before you even like, you've even like been to my house at one point. Like, if people are, I was living in San Diego. I now live in San Francisco, but if people are in the area, like we always try to meet up in person. You know, once a year I try to do a live event. So I think that's the thing too, is like people are actually friends in the community, which I never thought, I'm not gonna lie, when I started this, the coaching side of this, I never thought I would actually I never thought it would be like this kind of tight knit thing where I give out my personal phone number to everyone who joins. But it's been a pretty cool group. We've surprisingly gotten a good crop of people in the group. Like it's a cool community versus like, yeah, it's not. This is not like some like timeshare crowd of like or some weird, weird thing. So I guess
Yeah.
what else? I guess what else? I'm trying to think what else could help people on the outside looking in.
I
Uh,
mean, if someone is really looking for a community, it sounds I hate sounding cheesy, but it is really nice to have a community of like-minded people, especially for myself being on my own island, on this actual island. So, I think it's really important for people to be aware that the 5 people that you talk to the most and spend the most time with will have an effect on who you are as a person, how you function in your life, how you treat your life, how you treat your business. So I've made some lifelong friends. I mean, we moved to San Francisco, and now all those students get to meet up with him whenever. But I've met people in California and from across the country that I talk to regularly and really enjoy communicating with about life and business.
yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's really it. But thanks so much. Thanks so much for doing this, and for whoever schedules this call, there's a tiny chance you might actually talk to Alexandria herself. So
Yeah.
that's really it. All right, everyone. See you on the other side. Bye.
Yes.